Welcome to the LivBtr podcast. I'm Erica Spiegelman, addiction and wellness specialist and author, and along with me, I have my co-host, Jay Siano, a New York-based serial entrepreneur, business scaling expert, and wellness aficionado. We are here to inspire, encourage growth, and most importantly, to live better. Welcome to the LivBtr podcast. Today we have on the lovely Rachelle Robinett. She's a registered herbalist and founder of Pharmacon Supernatural. She lives her life to bring plant-based and holistic well-being into our daily lives. She studied basics with herbalism essentials, and she focuses on anything and everything that has to do with health. So welcome to the show, Rachelle. Welcome to the LivBtr podcast. I'm Erica Spiegelman.
And I'm Jay Siano.
Yes, and we are co-hosts. And we have today the very lovely Rachelle Robinett, who is an herbalist and so much more. Rachelle, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself for the audience to get to know you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. So I'm Rachelle Robinett, registered herbalist, the founder of Pharmacon Supernatural and Herbals. And my work is dedicated to teaching people how to be healthier with plants.
Yeah. And I've been lucky enough to be following you for quite some time now. And you have such a wealth of information. And you do videos and you have classes that people could take. And you really, I feel like you've even empowered me. You recommended a brand, Urban Moonshine, and now I've been using them. And, it's been very helpful because I think a lot of us have issues with digestion or sleep or, something going on. And really Western medicine typically, and our doctors don't have an answer, and we don't want to be on all these medicines. So I really appreciate the work you do. And can you just tell everybody, is there an herb or is there something that can pretty much address most ailments?
No.
There's no one size fits all herb.
No, I'm sorry.
Not one herb. I mean, is there usually something that could address the imbalance, in terms of the world of plants?
I don't
know too.
The most important ingredient, which is part of herbalism and it's part of a lot of other practices. The most important ingredient is our lifestyle.
Okay.
And that includes our nutrition. And, that, I think sometimes herbalism is seen as only the botanical equivalent to pharmaceuticals. And it's really much more holistic than that, which is why I married it. Because I was like, this encompasses nutrition, lifestyle, which is about sleep and movement and community and purpose and all the things, and all of the herbal remedies. So those pillars of health, those can address almost everything, and in there is plant medicine, is food medicine, is nature therapy, and the tinctures and the powders and the capsules and all of that, just kind of supercharges points of that, or can help to address, if you're in pain and you need a remedy, or, all the way up to being integrated with cancer therapies. So there's kind of a spectrum. And I would say at the most foundational level, to address everything, it's that layer of food, lifestyle.
Yeah.
Totally. Period.
I'm happy I asked because because that is the most important. Jay and I talk about this all the time. Just, we both lead healthy lives personally and focus on sleep. And you're right, that is the foundation to everything. I also just feel like we also, Jay, have discussed recently, when Jay stopped drinking recently, and when we've kind of been in an imbalance for a while, to see how all these things do affect your health, and just, So,
yeah. I had a client who was just in the last week, wasn't drinking much at all, just so little that they thought it was not an issue. And it maybe wasn't, an issue, but they stopped. And all of a sudden, all of the small kind of nagging, seemingly unrelated things just disappeared. And they were like, oh, I realize how this was starting this cascade of less than optimal sleep, which led to more cravings, which led to less, kind of self-control, which led to this. And it was a domino effect. So back to that foundation, it really does. It works wonders.
it's fascinating. I part of why I just love doing this podcast is learning and continuing to grow and evolve. So I'm very selfish about this. I'm like, Erica, first off, I'm getting therapy at no cost from doing this podcast, so thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm meeting amazing people like you. So my questions are probably, I would imagine our community has some questions. So when I think about, obviously, botanicals, the first things that come to mind for me are, THC and obviously all of everything that's kind of going on today, and how accepted it now is to use cannabis in all different ways. But it's so much more than that, right? It's so many different facets of herbs. Can you kind of just get into the basics for somebody who doesn't know much about it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking about, cannabis and maybe psychedelics and some of these the plant medicines that are at the upper end of the spectrum in
microdosing, all these really popular conversations. Yeah.
Totally. And those are the most potent, right? I mean, beyond that are the ones that are lethal, but those are very potent. And, we use them, unless you're microdosing, which is, its own conversation. We use them very occasionally, generally, and you get a lot of effect from them, right? And all the way down, to the other end of the spectrum, there's the food medicine like garlic and turmeric and basil and sage and cilantro, and all of those are medicinal too. So in terms of herbalism from, the botanical medicine standpoint, there are thousands and thousands of medicinal plants. And herbalists will have materia medica, which is an encyclopedia of herbs that they know really well that they can use in their practice, of hundreds of herbs. In my latest study, I learned, deeply 350 herbs. So it's really a wide range. And that was from someone who knew probably 3 or 4 times as many, just intimately, right? Off the top of their head. So there's a lot of medicine to work with. And again, we want to start at the bottom, if you will. And it doesn't mean that they're less effective. It just means you can use more of them safely. Sure. And as you graduate up through maybe, into ashwagandha, and then into, maybe some of the pulsatilla, and then into the psychedelics at a microdosing level, and then a macrodosing level, you either need to know what you're doing the farther up you go in kind of potency, or you work with someone who does. Yeah,
sure.
You work with a doctor, you work with an herbalist, you work with a guide, a shaman, anybody who knows them well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, people often ask, where do I start? Because this world is so daunting. And it's a great question. And I always recommend, just start with one herb, one ingredient, one practice, making tea, working with a tincture, getting acquainted with having these as part of your life. Again, also getting comfortable, because I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people are afraid of herbs. And, it's a helpful reminder that this used to be part of most humans' lives. Historically, it's a modern phenomenon that we're disconnected from nature in such a way that we're not constantly using those medicines preventatively for acute care. That was how we lived. We evolved, we learned from the animals, all these things. And now we're disconnected, and now it feels new and scary and also novel and adaptogens, so anyway.
Rachelle, I'm just curious. So if someone says I'm chronically tired, or my point is do people have to have a problem or an issue, or look inside themselves and say where am I lacking, or what do I need help with, versus just preventatively just saying I should take vitamin B, all the vitamin Bs, because I've heard, they're good for you long term and they're preventative in many ways. So you take them, versus looking at it where do I have an issue? Do I have a issue with headaches or digestion, or, it's I think that's where I think people kind of get lost in this, is do I wait till there's an issue and then use this, use plants or like, so I'm gonna just ask you, is there a way that we, like, I know you said start with one, but like which one, and which, and do we address it? Because if I'm taking ashwagandha, is that because I need more, like I'm too stressed? Is that gonna, so it seems like there's all these buzzy different ones out there, and I just don't know if they're right for everybody, is my point.
Yeah. Well, the marketing right now is pretty unfortunate. I would say it's good in the sense that it's raising awareness about these things, but it's really, especially with the term adaptogens, which ashwagandha is one. It's really inaccurately applied. Like I'm gonna start. I had to start some sort of, this is accurate, this is not accurate, because like 90% of what is in grocery stores and on the shelves right now that says it's adaptogenic is not.
Yeah.
And that's a separate conversation. But to answer your question, I like to recommend that people consider themselves first. So consider your needs, your interests, if it's an ailment or if it's just preventatively, I want to live as long as possible, or I want to be as healthy tomorrow as possible. Yeah. Like, what is your interest? Don't listen to the marketing and the hype and the fads. It's just like fad diets. Yeah. Like, what do you need? Not what's trendy right now. What do you need? And then there is always at least one, probably many plant, keys for that lock.
Yeah.
So whatever you need, and then you can go and you can either, search for it if you feel comfortable with that. You can talk to an herbalist. You can go to a health food store. You can go to a farmer's market. You can go to any resource of somebody who knows something about this world, plants, nutrition, and ask them, like, where do I start? And again, it's that level of like food, and that's like food herbs. Yeah. So again, garlic, turmeric, all the spices, vegetables. And then the medicines are the next layer up. So that's like ashwagandha and all these things. And then poisons are what we consider like psychedelics and beyond.
Yeah.
But yeah, look within, identify one need. And the other thing I always encourage people to do is, we have that need. Is that the cause? Like cause versus symptom.
Yeah.
So you mentioned energy. Like, I'm looking for more energy. Do you have any idea what's causing that low energy?
Right.
If you do, then you want to treat that. So for example, I'm low energy. Yeah, because I don't sleep enough because I have 3 kids, right? Something like that.
Right.
Then you go and you support your sleep.
Right.
You don't go push yourself into more energy with energizing herbs, right? Because that treating that symptom level is like modern medicine, and it's just Band-Aids and Band-Aids and Band-Aids. Go to the cause and marry it with the plant. Yeah.
That's, it's interesting that you say that, because, when it comes to sleep and when it comes to overall wellness, I'm very mindful of not just adding something else into the equation, so to speak, and going to the root of the issue. Like people, I post on my Instagram my sleep every night, every morning. So I get a lot of people, talking about sleep and, things I should try to sleep better. And I know I should put my phone down earlier, and I should go to bed earlier, and, the basics, right? Rather than like looking for something that's going to put me to sleep. Because I also like, in what I love about this conversation, it's all natural, right? I don't like putting anything in my body that's not natural. And that's also why I removed alcohol. So, and also if I'm going to do something to seek out a buzz, or have a good time, expanding my mind is way more interesting at this stage of my life than slurring or numbing my feelings.
Yeah. It's true. And I'll just add that you said it, a lot of times we know what the thing is. And it's just that exercise of actually asking ourselves, like, well, why aren't you getting enough sleep? Well, because I'm on my phone too late, and you're like, okay, well, that's what we need to work on, not the herb.
But it was so refreshing to hear you say that, as opposed to like, oh, I could just give you some of this and some of this and some of that, and not actually like get to the root of the issue, which I think is a big problem, obviously, with pharma, right?
Totally.
The biggest issue is they want everybody fat, sick, and tired.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And put a Band-Aid on it for sure.
Yeah.
But like Jay, you mentioned, like, in the addiction field, I see a lot of herbs that are in smoke shops that are very addictive, and I've had a lot of, so not all herbs, like if people are listening, are great to start taking, without, like you said, Rachelle, like getting some advice from somebody professional around this, and don't just buy whatever, people are selling literally on the counter. Which is equivalent to heroin sitting in a smoke shop, for kids to buy, but it exists, it's, the plants I'm talking about. It's not, they have coffin shops.
So that's a great point, but
Yeah.
Rachelle, so how do you get these things safely from a reputable place?
And let's talk about your products too. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I usually recommend that people run their herbal purchases through the same criteria that they run their food purchases through. So for somebody, organic may be absolutely essential, and that's ideal. And for somebody else, it may be inaccessible. So it's really a matter of, what is your criteria for your food? What's the best that you can do? Consider that when sourcing herbs. And it does definitely matter, because you'll have herbs at the, from the ideal source that will be organic or grown on a biodynamic farm or locally farmed, and you got them at the farmer's market, or they'll be wild foraged in a sustainable way, and they'll be more potent, they'll be higher quality. All of these things will be more effective. And at the worst, you have herbs that are not even what the bottle says they are, which is super common. So buying the cheapest option is not a good idea. It can be unsafe. It can be bad for the planet, bad for people, and it can be bad for you. So, I like, for somebody who knows nothing about herbs, I like to look at companies that have been around a long time, companies that are run by herbalists. There are many companies in business now. Some of my favorites have been around for 40 years, 50 years, 30 years, doing the exact same thing, farming, extracting herbs at a high quality, and offering them at a great price. The new trendy, flashy stuff, sometimes it's great, but if you're not sure, there are some things, you can look for, and it's the transparency about the product. Who's doing the formulations? Is it an herbalist?
Yeah.
Or is it like I'll just leave it at that. And, and how long have they been around? So
Yeah.
that's some stuff to look for you.
And tell us what you're doing now. Tell us about herbals, and tell us about PharmaCon and the classes that's been on online. I know you moved your store recently online. So
Yeah, we did. We moved Supernatural Cafe online, so everything is online now, which makes it available to everybody. We do still have our gummies. I always have them sitting right next to me.
Oh.
So we have our herbal gummies, which were made by an herbalist, formulated by me, very intentionally. So we have 3 SKUs. There's Nerveless, Everyday Endurance, and Digestness. And these came from formulas that I had, used with clients, used at the cafe, worked with for many, many years. Nerveless was the best-selling, tea for so long. I saw it help so many clients get better. And we put it in gummy format to answer some of what we've talked about today, to make it really easy for people to use. Everybody knows what to do with a gummy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to use than a tincture. And then PharmaCon Supernatural is now, there's a ton of free content. I've been doing this for a long time, writing, teaching, podcasts, speaking, events, all these things. And there's a huge archive of just free herbalism information on my website. And then I just continue to create more classes. We have a great newsletter, doing a podcast show. So there's new stuff, and then there's lots of free archive stuff if you want to just learn for free. Yeah. So the education piece is really important to me, because it's tough to navigate. I want people to be able to, rather than me just say, take this thing, it's like, let me help you understand how to know what you need and how to find it, in the industry. And so that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, you're such a good light leading the way for everybody, and also just an entrepreneur, and you have that spirit of just like and I love that because I feel like Jay and I we always talk about how we're drawn to creative people that are just thinking kind of like outside the box and just like to do many things, which you can. I think entrepreneurs could be many things. You don't have to have one hat only. But can you tell us like a little bit about your own like just personal lifestyle, like day to day? Do you just for your self-care, what is the most important for you? I'm just curious.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I frustrate people because they're like, what are all the things that you take that make your skin nice? And I'm like, well, it's water, plant-based diet, sleep, exercise, stress management. So some of the non-negotiables for me are sleep and my food, and exercise. So those pillars, like really just it's like non-negotiable at this point, and if I travel, then I figure out food situations ahead of time, and it's not perfect, but I do my best, and having that be the default for a long period of time now, it just allows me to function at a really high level and to feel great, most of the time. So, I get good sleep. I move quite a lot every day. I love to exercise. I love running. I love weight training, riding my bike, like always trying to I think I'm a big fan of change and growth and like not becoming stagnant in routine, in lifestyle, in mental kind of patterns. So I'm always trying to push into new areas. So, like learning how to surf, learning how to play tennis. It's like, what is a new challenging thing I can do with my body while I'm able to? And then
my plan, right? Like it's like you want to be fluid, but you also have like your non-negotiables, which is good for people to know, Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a template. I'm always sleeping well. I'm always doing some kind of exercise, but what I'm doing for exercise changes. I mean, it's consistent for periods of like 8 months, and then I might change it. Like we got a Peloton during the, pandemic, and I'm still using the Peloton, but it'll day to day, what I do will change to be, varied. And then year over year, it's like, okay, I'm feeling like I've been weight training a lot. Let's change, something up. My work days are always different. I shoot a lot now because of the amount of kind of education and content that we're creating. I might be doing podcasts, taking meetings. I have a team. I may be writing. I try to take at least one full day a week to write because I'm working on a book. Oh, there's that. And then I clock out. My work-life balance is something I was reflecting on recently, is that I worked really, really hard for a lot of years to get to a place now where I can have a really nice work-life balance. And I feel directly, indebted to the younger version of myself who did this on purpose, was like, burn it now. Like you have the energy, hustle, and later, not too much later, not like retirement, but like later in your career, you can kick back a little bit. And so I'm really able to enjoy the process now and not, thankfully not have lots of stress, not long hours, sitting. I try to break that up. But yeah, every day is different. And I eat plant-based primarily, not 100%. Drink lots of water, and I do take lots of herbs.
So I have some questions around. I noticed that you referred to your exercise earlier in the conversation as just movement.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly evolving my training and also in similar ways to you, where I'm more, strength training focused, and then I'll, get into running a little bit more, or I'll get more into yoga, and I'm very involved in the fitness wellness space. And I just started to really get obsessed with cold plunges and saunas and contrast therapy. And So for you, I mean, obviously, mindfulness is, I think, a big part of everything that we're talking about. And you also said, you are indebted to your younger self where you were working really hard and hustling and grinding. I feel the same way. And I think that I love the concept of addition by subtraction and really, becoming a little bit more mature and wise and realizing that you could accomplish more by doing less. And I feel like as people, if we're doing exactly what we were doing this time last year, we're not pushing ourselves enough either to evolve. So the tips that you've given us, I'm going to take personally, definitely incorporate into my routine. It's fascinating. I think, it's why we're all together having this conversation.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it reminds me of the importance of perspective, forward looking and back to our younger selves to say thanks to, and that's a constant practice for me too. Where am I going? Why?
No.
And do all these tasks have anything to do with that? As a lot of times they don't. And so that sort of ruthless prioritization really on a daily basis, especially I think as an entrepreneur with the kind of freedom and also the traps of like being able to just kind of execute. I really try to keep my head out of the weeds, and to just maintain this trajectory that is about purpose ultimately and feeling like my time is well spent on this earth. And so far that's been going well, but it is a constant practice for sure.
One thing you mentioned too is community. I'm just curious, like, as you've evolved, do you, in terms of friends, family, whoever's in your life, like, has it changed since you've gotten healthier in your life? Or is it like this, and just for people out there that are stuck with, not saying that sometimes the people in our lives that are old friends are like, they're not adding value anymore, or let's say people want to meet new people, make change, or meet more like-minded people, or, find a community that is into, let's say, eating healthier or herbs, and they feel stuck. Because I have a lot of clients like, the people in my lives they're not into this, and I feel unsupported, and I want to make change, but, I can't. And so just curious on like any advice for people that, want to connect in a different kind of way with, like-minded people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. My community's definitely changed over the years. When I was younger, and even, I don't know if I was more driven. I'm still just as driven, but driven in a different way, which we've referenced.
Yeah.
And when wellness wasn't cool, I was teased a ton for my lifestyle and misunderstood and, all of these things. And so in some senses that was isolating. But then, I collided with the wellness world, and that what has become, far more than a trend, and was suddenly surrounded by my people. Yeah. So I think ultimately, it really is about what you need and what's best for you. And then those, finding that community, and maybe you find them serendipitously, or maybe you find them by creating the community or going out and seeking it. So I'm in a stage right now where I'm building a community around my writing practice and my writing interests. So I started a writing group, but I'm also going to writing related events in Brooklyn and New York, and like purposely going out and trying to meet people so I can have more of a community around this certain topic. So I think it's a combination of things, but it's not probably, sticking with the people who tease you or aren't supportive or are undermining what's best for you. I mean, I think people know that long term, but maybe it's helpful to hear it.
Yeah, sure, for sure. Yeah.
Do you practice any breath work? Is that part of?
I do kind of casually with breath work. I like it. I have, I've had holotropic experiences and a lot of different things. I'm pretty committed right now to Dharma study and meditation. And so I'm not sure that me putting breath work in my routine too, it might be a little bit too much to ask. But I also, I did it like yesterday for 30 minutes. So I think it's casually kind of when I feel the need or have the time, then I'll squeeze it in. So
Can you tell us a little bit more about the meditation that you referenced?
Yeah. So, I've been interested in Buddhism my whole life. And I've been on a sort of spiritual quest, if you will, since I was a little kid, which is mainly why I am doing what I'm doing now, which is a very long story, but it's kind of a primal motivator for me. And about 6 months ago or 7 months ago, I finally committed to a teacher that I'd found, and I'd been studying with at a distance, like attending some of his classes. And I was like, I really, really like this teacher. And so I decided to work with him one-on-one. And now that we've been doing that, my meditation practice has gone from nothing to daily and focused. And he's taking me through, like someone would learn herbalism or nutrition or fitness or anything, the back to the basics, because I have all this scattered knowledge that I've, acquired over the years. So it's like back to the basics, and he's taking me all the way through. And I have readings between our sessions. I have meditation, practices between our sessions, reflections, and then we meet and we talk. And frankly, it feels like one of the most meaningful things I can be doing with my time. It is in the top 3 slot immediately. And I think it's partly because it's been so much of a, like I mentioned, that driver and that kind of like primal pursuit for me since I was really, really young, like an innate need. So
That's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Honor that constant whisper, and they're doing it. I think a lot of the times we put these things off, and that's kind of a betrayal of sorts to ourselves. And so, it's great. And I think too, at different points in time in our lives, as for me, at least in my wellness journey, it's like meditation was in the beginning when I kind of changed my life, and then it flowed out, and then this came in and that flowed out. And I think it's just as long as we keep our hearts and minds open to like the fact that, breath work maybe is really good now because you're not, you have young kids and you're not sleeping well and you're stressed and you can't catch your breath. Literally practice breath work. Or if, I think it's just, we're all in different chapters, which Jay and I always talk about, like we're live better. We want everyone to live better no matter where you're at. So I think it's nice that you're sharing kind of where you're at now, and I'm sure that will change. And which is fantastic.
It's true. And it took me this whole time to get to a place where I was like, okay, I can commit to meditation now, or it feels the most important. And I think I had to go through like psychedelics, for example, and I had to have those experiences. And now like, I'm not really interested in those. But the reason that I committed to Dharma is because I feel like the mind is this final frontier, and I want to go in and I want to explore. And this is the vehicle that I believe in as the way to do that. So it's a perpetual journey.
Yeah. Yeah. It all bleeds into each other. Amazing. That's so good. Well, thank you so much for your valuable wisdom and your amazing energy and time. We really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. So everything is on my website, which is supernatural.com. I would recommend hopping on the newsletter there. I'm on Instagram, Rachelle Robinett. It's all there.
Yeah. Perfect. And yes, really, I can't say enough about how I look to you for this kind of knowledge. I do. No, it's true. Thank you so much. It's really when you find someone you feel like you could trust, and there's a connection, there's a deep, and you really do care, and you really do know, and you continue to seek out more and more, which is amazing. So thanks.
And you have great energy, even through a computer screen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This is such, I appreciate it.
Thank you.